The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Windsor Castle as Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood at the window of their private quarters. Her fingers traced the cool glass while she watched the groundskeepers preparing the gardens for what would be one of the most difficult days in recent royal history. The weight of the moment pressed against her chest like a physical force, yet she maintained the composed exterior that had become her trademark over the years of royal service. Prince William emerged from the adjoining room, his naval uniform pressed to perfection, though the slight tremor in his hands betrayed the emotion he was fighting to contain. The couple had received the news 3 days earlier during what should have been a routine morning briefing. The Queen's physician had delivered the prognosis with clinical precision, but the words had struck them both like lightning. Her Majesty had perhaps weeks, not months, and the family needed to prepare for the inevitable transition that would reshape the monarchy forever. Catherine turned from the window as William approached, and, without words, she reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined with the natural ease of two people who had weathered storms together, from university sweethearts to global figures representing the crown. The silence between them spoke volumes about the magnitude of what lay ahead. They both understood that today marked the beginning of the end of an era that had defined their entire adult lives. The princess had spent the early hours of the morning reviewing her schedule with her private secretary, Lady Susan Morrison, a woman whose discretion and efficiency had become legendary within palace circles. Every engagement for the coming weeks had been carefully scrutinized, with contingency plans developed for the various scenarios they might face. Catherine's calendar, typically filled months in advance, now carried an air of uncertainty that felt foreign to the usually precise world of royal protocol. Lady Morrison had presented Catherine with a leather-bound folder containing the preliminary arrangements for what palace officials euphemistically called London Bridge, the code name for the Queen's eventual passing. The protocols had been refined over decades, with every detail planned to ensure the continuity of the crown while honoring the monarch who had served for over 7 decades. Catherine studied each page with the thoroughness that characterized her approach to royal duties, asking pointed questions about timing, logistics, and the roles she and William would be expected to fulfill. William had his own set of responsibilities to consider. As the heir to the heir, he would soon find himself thrust into a position of unprecedented responsibility within the royal hierarchy. The transition would not merely be ceremonial. It would fundamentally alter the dynamic of the family business that was the modern British monarchy. His father, Charles, would inherit challenges that had been building for years, from questions about the Commonwealth's future to debates about the monarchy's role in contemporary society. The couple's children had been carefully shielded from the full weight of the situation, though Prince George, now old enough to understand the gravity of family gatherings, had begun asking questions that required delicate answers. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis remained blissfully unaware of the approaching change, their childhood innocence a precious commodity that Catherine and William were determined to protect for as long as possible. Nanny Maria Borallo had been briefed on the situation and would play a crucial role in maintaining stability for the young royals during the turbulent period ahead. The Spanish caretaker had become an integral part of the Wales family unit, her calm presence and professional expertise providing the children with consistency even as the adult world around them prepared for seismic shifts. The morning's first official duty involved a private audience with the Archbishop of Canterbury, who had arrived at Windsor to discuss the spiritual dimensions of the transition. The Most Reverend Justin Welby had served as the Queen's spiritual advisor through numerous family crises, and understood better than most the unique pressures facing the royal family during times of profound change. His conversation with William and Catherine touched on themes of duty, faith, and the particular burden of public grief. Catherine found herself reflecting on her own journey from a middle-class girl in Berkshire to one of the most photographed women in the world. The transformation had not been without its challenges, but she had approached royal life with the same methodical determination that had carried her through university and her early career. Now, faced with the prospect of supporting her husband through his own evolution into a future king, she drew upon reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed. The princess had always understood that marrying William meant accepting a life of service, but the theoretical knowledge of that commitment was different from the lived reality of its demands. Over the years, she had developed her own areas of expertise, from early childhood development to mental health advocacy, building a platform that allowed her to contribute meaningfully to national conversations while supporting the Crown's broader mission. William's relationship with his grandmother had always been particularly close, forged during the difficult years following his mother's death. The Queen had provided stability and guidance during his adolescence, helping him navigate the unique challenges of growing up in the public eye while dealing with profound personal loss. Now, as he faced the prospect of losing another central figure in his life, he drew upon the lessons she had taught him about duty, resilience, and the delicate balance between public service and private grief. The couple's morning routine had been carefully planned to include moments of normalcy amid the extraordinary circumstances. Catherine insisted on maintaining some semblance of their usual family breakfast, understanding that the children needed anchor points of familiarity as the world around them began to shift. Prince George, always observant, had noticed the increased presence of security personnel and the hushed conversations between his parents, but he accepted their explanations with the trusting nature of childhood. As the day progressed, William and Catherine prepared for what would be their final official engagement before the period of transition began in earnest. The charity event had been planned months earlier, but now it carried additional significance as potentially their last appearance as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge in the familiar rhythm that had defined their royal careers thus far. The princess's wardrobe selection for the event had been made with particular care, choosing pieces that conveyed both elegance and accessibility, hallmarks of her personal style that had evolved over years of public appearances. Her jewelry choices were equally deliberate, featuring pieces with personal significance that would be captured by photographers and remembered as part of the visual narrative of this historic period. The couple's private conversations during these final preparations touched on practical matters and emotional realities in equal measure. They discussed the impact on their charitable patronages, the changes that would be required in their children's education and security arrangements, and the ways they could best support King Charles during his own period of adjustment to the throne. Catherine had spent considerable time consulting with her stylist and closest advisors about the image she wanted to project during the challenging weeks ahead. Every public appearance would be scrutinized for signs of how the family was coping with their loss and their new responsibilities. The princess understood that her comportment would send signals to the British public and the Commonwealth nations about the stability and continuity of the monarchy during this transitional period. The logistics of their evening engagement had been complicated by the need for enhanced security protocols and the presence of additional royal protection officers. The venue had been thoroughly swept, and backup plans had been developed for various contingencies that might arise. Despite these precautions, William and Catherine were determined to fulfill their commitment to the charity and the guests who had been looking forward to the event for months. As they prepared to depart Windsor Castle, the couple took a moment to stand together in the courtyard where they had shared so many significant moments over the years. The afternoon light cast everything in golden hues that seemed to underscore the poignancy of the day. They both understood that they were witnessing the end of one chapter of their lives and the beginning of another that would bring responsibilities and challenges they could only begin to imagine. The drive to London provided them with a rare opportunity for private conversation away from the listening ears that were always present in their official residences. Catherine reached for William's hand as their car navigated the familiar route, and they spoke quietly about their hopes and fears for the future. Both recognized that their relationship would be tested in new ways as they adapted to roles that would place them at the very center of British public life. Their arrival at the charity venue was met with the usual crowd of photographers and well-wishers, but there was an underlying current of awareness that this appearance carried special significance. The couple moved through their public duties with practiced ease, yet those who knew them well could detect subtle signs of the emotional weight they were carrying. Catherine's smile remained warm and genuine, but there was a depth to her interactions that suggested her awareness of the moment's importance. As the evening concluded and they prepared to return home, William and Catherine knew that their lives had already begun to change in ways both visible and invisible. The young family that had carved out a relatively normal existence within the constraints of royal life was about to be thrust into a level of scrutiny and responsibility that would test every aspect of their relationship and their individual characters. Yet as they faced this challenge together, they drew strength from the bond they had forged and the shared commitment to service that had brought them to this pivotal moment in history. The rain drummed against the windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine stood in her private study, surrounded by stacks of correspondence that had been pouring in from around the Commonwealth. Each letter represented a life touched by the Queen's reign, and reading them had become both a privilege and an emotional marathon. Citizens from Australia to Canada shared memories of meeting Her Majesty, stories of how royal visits had impacted their communities, and expressions of gratitude for decades of steadfast service. William found his wife in this position most mornings now, carefully reading through the messages with a dedication that both impressed and concerned him. Catherine had always possessed a remarkable ability to connect with people's emotions, but the weight of the world's grief seemed to be settling on her shoulders in ways that were visible only to those who knew her best. Her usual morning run through Hyde Park had been replaced by these quiet sessions of reading and reflection, as if she were trying to absorb and process the collective sorrow of millions. The princess had established a routine of personally responding to letters from children, understanding that young people needed reassurance during times of uncertainty and change. Her replies were handwritten on palace stationery, each one carefully crafted to acknowledge the child's feelings while offering comfort and hope for the future. The task was time-consuming, but Catherine viewed it as one of her most important responsibilities during this transitional period. Lady Morrison had suggested that a member of staff could handle the correspondence, but Catherine had politely declined. She explained that reading these letters helped her understand the profound impact the Queen's life had on ordinary people, and this understanding would inform how she and William approached their evolving roles. The princess had always believed that effective royal service required genuine empathy, and these letters provided her with insights that no briefing paper could capture. The children's schedules had been carefully maintained to provide them with stability, though Prince George had begun asking more sophisticated questions about why everyone seemed sad and why there were so many serious meetings at the palace. Catherine and William had developed age-appropriate ways of explaining the situation, focusing on the concepts of service, love, and the natural cycle of life without overwhelming their young minds with details they weren't ready to process. Princess Charlotte had surprised everyone with her perceptive observations about the adults around her. She had noticed that her great-grandmother seemed tired during their recent visits and had begun drawing pictures for her with special care. The 7-year-old's artistic efforts had become treasured gifts for the Queen, who displayed them prominently in her private sitting room at Windsor Castle. These small gestures of love and innocence provided moments of joy during increasingly difficult days. Prince Louis, still young enough to be largely unaware of the gravity surrounding the family, had become an unexpected source of lightness during tense family gatherings. His spontaneous hugs and playful antics reminded everyone of the importance of maintaining perspective and finding moments of happiness even during sorrowful times. Catherine made sure to capture these precious interactions, understanding that they would become cherished memories in the years to come. The medical updates had become a grim routine, delivered with professional detachment that somehow made the news even more difficult to bear. The Queen's physician spoke in careful euphemisms about decline and comfort measures, but the meaning was clear to everyone present. Each day brought visible changes that no amount of royal stoicism could completely mask, and the family found themselves treasuring every conversation and shared moment with new intensity. Catherine had begun spending more time with the Queen during these difficult weeks, often sitting quietly in her private apartments while Her Majesty worked on correspondence or received brief updates from her private secretary. These sessions required no conversation. The simple presence of family seemed to provide comfort to the monarch who had spent her life surrounded by people, yet often isolated by the unique demands of her position. The princess discovered that the Queen appreciated having someone present who could simply listen without needing to offer solutions or advice. Catherine's background as a commoner, which had once been viewed as a potential liability by some palace traditionalists, now proved invaluable. She could provide a perspective that was both respectful of royal tradition and grounded in the experiences of ordinary people who would be affected by the coming transition. William had noticed his wife's growing confidence in these intimate royal settings, watching as she navigated complex family dynamics with grace and wisdom that seemed beyond her years. The shy girl he had met at university had evolved into a woman capable of providing strength and stability during one of the monarchy's most challenging periods. Her transformation had been gradual but profound, and he found himself falling in love with new aspects of her character as they faced this crisis together. The couple's evening conversations had taken on new depth and urgency as they discussed not only immediate concerns but also their long-term vision for their roles within the monarchy. Catherine had been developing her own ideas about how royal engagement could evolve to meet contemporary challenges, drawing from her extensive charitable work and her observations of social changes throughout Britain and the Commonwealth. Her interest in early childhood development had led to partnerships with universities and research institutions that were producing real insights into how royal patronage could support evidence-based policymaking. Catherine had discovered that her platform could amplify important research and drive conversations about issues that might otherwise struggle to gain public attention. This work had given her a sense of purpose that went beyond ceremonial duties, and she was eager to expand these efforts in her evolving role. The princess had also been quietly building relationships with women leaders across the Commonwealth, understanding that the monarchy's future success would depend partly on its ability to reflect and support the aspirations of diverse populations. Her conversations with female prime ministers, business leaders, and social activists had provided her with insights into how royal engagement could be more meaningful and impactful in the 21st century. William had been impressed by his wife's strategic thinking and her ability to balance respect for tradition with innovative approaches to royal service. He had watched her navigate complex diplomatic situations with skill that belied her relatively recent entry into royal life. Foreign ambassadors and government officials often commented on her combination of warmth and intelligence, noting that she could discuss serious policy issues while maintaining the personal touch that made royal encounters memorable and meaningful. The media scrutiny during this period had intensified beyond even the usual levels of attention paid to the royal family. Every public appearance was analyzed for signs of stress or emotion, and photographers seemed particularly focused on capturing images that might reveal the family's private feelings about the approaching transition. Catherine and William had developed strategies for maintaining their privacy while fulfilling their public obligations, but the constant attention remained a significant source of stress. The princess had been working closely with the palace's communications team to ensure that their public messaging struck the right tone during this sensitive period. Every statement needed to balance honesty about the family's emotions with reassurance about the monarchy's stability and continuity. Catherine's background in art history had given her an appreciation for visual communication, and she paid careful attention to the images and symbols that would be associated with this historic transition. The couple's charitable engagements continued despite the personal challenges they were facing, partly because they recognized that their work provided important stability for the organizations and communities that depended on royal patronage. Catherine had insisted on maintaining her commitments to children's charities, understanding that young people needed consistent support during uncertain times. Her appearances at youth centers and schools had taken on additional significance as she helped children process their own feelings about change and loss. William had focused his efforts on environmental causes and homelessness initiatives, areas where his long-term commitment had built trust and produced measurable results. His work with former servicemen had been particularly meaningful during this period, as he drew parallels between military service and royal duty, emphasizing themes of sacrifice, honor, and service to something greater than oneself. The couple had been careful to coordinate their schedules to ensure that one parent was always available to the children during this uncertain time. Family dinners had become sacred rituals, providing opportunities for normal conversation and connection away from the pressures of royal duty. Catherine had insisted on maintaining their tradition of reading bedtime stories, using these quiet moments to gauge how the children were processing the changes in their world. Prince George had shown remarkable maturity in his understanding of family responsibilities, often asking thoughtful questions about duty and service that surprised the adults around him. His teachers had reported that he was processing information about the monarchy's role with the seriousness of someone much older, yet he maintained the curiosity and playfulness appropriate to his age. Catherine and William were careful to answer his questions honestly, while ensuring he didn't feel burdened by expectations beyond his years. The extended royal family had rallied around the core group during this difficult time, with each member contributing their own strengths and perspectives to the collective effort of preparing for transition. Princess Anne's practical efficiency had been invaluable in coordinating logistics, while Prince Edward's understanding of media and communications helped ensure consistent messaging across all family activities. The Duchess of Edinburgh had provided particular support to Catherine, sharing insights gained from her own journey into royal life. As winter deepened and the Queen's condition continued to decline, the family found themselves living each day with heightened awareness of its potential significance. Catherine had begun keeping a private journal, documenting not only events but also her own emotional journey during this historic period. She wrote about her fears and hopes, her observations of William's strength under pressure, and her growing understanding of the unique burdens and privileges of royal service. The princess had also been having regular conversations with King Charles about their shared vision for the monarchy's future, discussing everything from ceremonial traditions to the practical challenges of maintaining relevance in a rapidly changing world. These discussions had revealed Catherine's thoughtful approach to royal duties and her ability to think strategically about long-term institutional needs while remaining sensitive to human emotions and relationships. The approaching goodbye was becoming more real with each passing day, and the family was learning to treasure small moments while preparing for the monumental changes that lay ahead. Catherine and William knew that their strength as a couple would be tested in ways they could hardly imagine, but they faced the future with determination to honor the Queen's legacy while building a monarchy that could serve future generations with the same dedication and grace that had defined her remarkable reign. The call came at 3 in the morning, piercing through the darkness of Kensington Palace with an urgency that needed no explanation. Catherine woke instantly, her heart already knowing what the voice on the other end would confirm. William's face in the dim light told her everything she needed to know before he even spoke the words that would change their lives forever. The Queen had passed peacefully in her sleep at Balmoral Castle, surrounded by her closest family members who had maintained a vigil through her final hours. The next few minutes passed in a blur of practiced efficiency born from years of preparation for this moment. Secure phone calls were made to palace officials who would set in motion the carefully choreographed sequence of events known as Operation London Bridge. Catherine moved through their apartment with quiet purpose, gathering the black clothing that had been hanging in their wardrobe for months, prepared for this inevitable day. The weight of the moment settled over the palace like a shroud, even as the machinery of constitutional monarchy began its solemn work. Prince Charles was now king, and William had become heir to the throne in an instant that transformed not just titles, but the entire trajectory of their family's future. Catherine understood that she was no longer simply the Duchess of Cambridge, but a key figure in the direct line of succession, with responsibilities that would multiply exponentially in the days and years ahead. The theoretical discussions about their evolving roles had suddenly become immediate reality. The children were sleeping peacefully when Catherine and William made the decision to let them rest through the night before sharing news that would fundamentally alter their understanding of their place in the world. Prince George would wake up as second in line to the throne, while Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis would find their lives forever changed by events they were still too young to fully comprehend. The parents spent quiet moments watching their children sleep, memorizing their faces in innocence before the weight of history settled upon their young shoulders. Lady Morrison arrived within the hour, her usual composed demeanor providing a stabilizing presence as she began coordinating the complex logistics that would govern the family's activities for the foreseeable future. The princess's schedule for the coming weeks would need complete reorganization, balancing the demands of the mourning period with the children's needs and the constitutional requirements that now pressed upon them with new urgency. Catherine found herself thinking about the Queen's final days, remembering their last conversation when Her Majesty had spoken with characteristic directness about the challenges that lay ahead. The monarch had expressed particular concern about William and Catherine's children, emphasizing the importance of protecting their childhood while preparing them for eventual roles they had not chosen but would inherit by birth. Her final words of advice had been surprisingly personal, focusing more on family happiness than constitutional duty. The first official photographs taken after the Queen's death would become historic documents, and Catherine was acutely aware of the message her appearance would send to millions of people around the world who were waking up to news of their monarch's passing. Her black dress was elegant, but not ostentatious, her jewelry limited to pieces with personal significance rather than state treasures. Every detail was carefully considered to convey appropriate grief while projecting strength and continuity. William's transformation was immediately visible as he adapted to his new role as heir to the throne. The easy informality that had characterized much of his public persona was replaced by a gravity befitting his enhanced position. Catherine watched with admiration as her husband stepped into responsibilities that would have overwhelmed many people, drawing upon reserves of strength and dignity that seemed to emerge naturally when duty demanded them. The couple's first joint appearance as the new Prince and Princess of Wales would occur later that morning, when they joined King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla for the formal proclamation of the new reign. Catherine had been preparing for this moment for years, but the reality of walking into Westminster Abbey as the future Queen Consort brought emotions she hadn't anticipated. The weight of history pressed down upon her as she considered the line of extraordinary women who had held this position before her. Their children's reactions to the news provided moments of heartbreak and unexpected wisdom. Prince George processed the information with the seriousness of someone who understood that his life had changed fundamentally, asking thoughtful questions about what would be expected of him now that his great-grandmother was gone. Princess Charlotte cried for the loss of someone she had loved dearly, while Prince Louis struggled to understand why everyone was so sad when they talked about great-granny being with the angels. The media response was immediate and overwhelming, with news outlets around the world focusing not just on the Queen's death, but on the young family who would now carry the monarchy into its next chapter. Catherine had grown accustomed to intense media attention over the years, but this level of scrutiny was unprecedented. Every gesture would be analyzed, every expression interpreted as a sign of how the new generation would approach their inherited responsibilities. Palace staff worked throughout the day to manage the flood of condolence messages arriving from heads of state, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens whose lives had been touched by the Queen's long reign. Catherine insisted on reading messages from children, finding in their simple expressions of sorrow and hope a reminder of why the monarchy mattered to people who might never meet a royal family member, but felt connected to the institution nonetheless. The logistics of the state funeral began to take shape, with Catherine playing an active role in decisions about elements that would honor the Queen's memory while reflecting the values of the monarchy she had left behind. The princess's background in art history proved invaluable as she contributed insights about visual symbolism and cultural significance that would make the ceremony meaningful to diverse populations across the Commonwealth. King Charles's first addresses as monarch set the tone for his reign, while acknowledging the profound loss the family and nation were experiencing. Catherine was moved by her father-in-law's words about service and continuity, recognizing in his voice both grief for his mother and determination to honor her legacy through his own reign. The careful balance between personal emotion and constitutional duty would become a theme that defined their family's approach to this transitional period. The couple's first walkabout as the new Prince and Princess of Wales took place outside Buckingham Palace, where thousands of mourners had gathered to pay their respects and witness history in the making. Catherine was struck by the genuine emotion of the crowds, many of whom had traveled great distances to be present for this historic moment. Children held handmade cards and drawings, elderly people shared memories of previous royal occasions, and families explained to young ones why this day was so important. The flowers, cards, and tributes left outside royal residences created a sea of color and emotion that stretched as far as the eye could see. Catherine spent time examining the messages and gifts, understanding that each one represented a personal connection to the Queen and to the institution of monarchy. She made mental notes about themes and concerns expressed by the public, information that would inform her approach to royal duties in the years ahead. International reaction to the Queen's death highlighted the global significance of the British monarchy, with world leaders offering condolences that spoke to the Queen's role as a stabilizing presence on the world stage. Catherine found herself thinking about the diplomatic responsibilities that would now fall to King Charles and, eventually, to William and herself. The relationships the Queen had built over 7 decades of service had created a network of goodwill that would need careful nurturing by her successors. The Commonwealth nations' responses revealed both the deep affection many felt for the Queen and the questions about the monarchy's future role in an increasingly complex global landscape. Catherine had been studying these relationships for months, understanding that the institution's survival might depend on its ability to evolve while maintaining the essential characteristics that had made it relevant for so many people across different cultures and generations. Private family moments during this public period of mourning provided essential emotional support for everyone involved. Catherine made sure that regular family meals continued, creating spaces where grief could be expressed naturally without the constraints of public dignity. These gatherings allowed the children to ask questions, share feelings, and receive reassurance from adults who were processing their own complex emotions. The Queen's personal belongings and private spaces became repositories of memory that the family approached with reverence and careful consideration. Catherine found herself moved by the simple human elements of the Queen's life: the photographs of family members, the well-worn books, the small personal items that revealed the woman behind the crown. These intimate glimpses helped her understand the person she had known as a grandmother-in-law and respected as a monarch. William's evolution during these first days of his new role impressed everyone who witnessed it. Catherine watched as he naturally assumed greater authority and responsibility, his years of preparation for eventual kingship becoming evident in his confident handling of complex situations. Their partnership deepened as they supported each other through challenges that tested their relationship in ways they had never experienced. The couple's decision about how to involve their children in public mourning rituals required careful balance between protecting their youth and acknowledging their new positions in the line of succession. Catherine advocated for age-appropriate participation that would allow the children to honor their great-grandmother's memory while shielding them from overwhelming public attention. These decisions would set precedents for how future royal children would navigate similar situations. As the first week of the new reign concluded, Catherine reflected on the magnitude of the changes that had transformed their lives in such a short time. The theoretical preparation for eventual royal responsibilities had given way to the practical reality of serving as senior members of the royal family during one of its most challenging periods. She drew strength from William's steady presence and from her own growing confidence in her ability to serve with the dignity and grace that the British people deserved from their future queen. The state funeral preparations consumed the next 10 days in a carefully orchestrated symphony of tradition, protocol, and personal grief that would culminate in a ceremony witnessed by billions around the world. Catherine found herself at the center of decisions that balanced the Queen's personal wishes with constitutional requirements and practical considerations for an event of unprecedented scale and significance. Her attention to detail and sensitivity to symbolism proved invaluable as the royal family worked to create a farewell worthy of the monarch's remarkable 7-decade reign. Westminster Abbey was transformed into a sanctuary that honored both ancient traditions and contemporary values, with Catherine playing an active role in selecting musical pieces and readings that would resonate with diverse populations across the Commonwealth. The princess had developed a deep appreciation for the power of ceremony to help people process collective grief, and she approached these decisions with the seriousness of someone who understood that the funeral would provide closure for millions of people who had never met the Queen but felt connected to her through decades of service. The children's participation in the funeral required extensive preparation and emotional support that Catherine coordinated with their teachers, security personnel, and child psychologists. Prince George would play a visible role befitting his position as second in line to the throne, while Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis would participate in ways appropriate to their ages and emotional readiness. Catherine insisted on rehearsals that would familiarize the children with the ceremony's length and solemnity without overwhelming them with the weight of global attention they would receive. International delegations began arriving in London days before the funeral, creating diplomatic challenges that required careful coordination between the Foreign Office and palace officials. Catherine found herself involved in planning for visiting heads of state and their families, understanding that the funeral would provide opportunities for important diplomatic conversations while honoring the Queen's memory. Her background and natural empathy made her particularly effective at helping foreign dignitaries understand British customs and traditions. The personal elements of the funeral planning revealed intimate aspects of the Queen's character that had been largely hidden from public view during her lifetime. Catherine learned about her private charities, personal friendships that had lasted decades, and small acts of kindness that had touched countless lives. These discoveries deepened her understanding of the monarch's approach to service and informed her own vision for using royal platforms to make meaningful differences in people's lives. William's responsibilities as heir to the throne expanded dramatically during the funeral preparations, as he worked closely with King Charles to ensure that every aspect of the ceremony honored their mother and grandmother while projecting appropriate messages about the monarchy's future. Catherine watched with admiration as her husband navigated complex family dynamics and constitutional requirements with maturity that seemed to emerge from somewhere deep within his character. The couple's living arrangements at Kensington Palace were modified to accommodate the increased security and staff presence required during this period of national mourning and global attention. Catherine worked to maintain familiar routines for the children while adapting to the reality that their home had become a center of international focus. The family's private spaces became even more precious as public demands on their time intensified. Media coverage of the funeral preparations focused extensively on Catherine's evolution into her new role as Princess of Wales, with commentators noting her growing confidence and natural authority in situations that would have intimidated many people. The princess was conscious of this scrutiny but determined to focus on her responsibilities rather than public perception. Her wardrobe choices for funeral-related events were made with careful attention to appropriateness and respect for the solemn occasion. The floral arrangements for the funeral incorporated elements from gardens at royal residences that held special meaning for the queen, including flowers she had personally planted and tended over the years. Catherine contributed suggestions based on her knowledge of the queen's preferences and her understanding of the symbolic meanings different flowers would convey to various cultural communities within the Commonwealth. The collaborative process revealed the careful thought that went into every element of the ceremony. Foreign correspondence during this period brought messages of condolence from world leaders, religious figures, and ordinary citizens whose lives had been touched by the Queen's reign. Catherine made time to read selections from different countries, gaining insights into how the British monarchy was perceived internationally and how its influence had shaped diplomatic relationships over decades. These messages informed her growing understanding of the global responsibilities that came with her position. The couple's charitable patronages required careful attention during the mourning period, as organizations that depended on royal support needed reassurance about continuity during the transition. Catherine worked with palace staff to ensure that existing commitments were honored while developing frameworks for how her patronages might evolve to reflect her enhanced role. The process required balancing personal interests with strategic considerations about where royal support could be most effective. Prince George's understanding of his changing role developed gradually through conversations with his parents that balanced honesty about future responsibilities with protection of his childhood. Catherine was particularly careful to ensure that her eldest son understood his position without feeling burdened by expectations beyond his years. The 9-year-old's questions revealed remarkable insight into family dynamics and constitutional relationships that surprised even the adults around him. The funeral morning dawned clear and cold, providing perfect conditions for a ceremony that would be remembered as one of the most significant events in modern British history. Catherine's preparation began before sunrise, with careful attention to every detail of her appearance that would be scrutinized by audiences around the world. Her black outfit was elegant and appropriate, featuring jewelry with personal significance that honored the Queen's memory while reflecting her own evolving style as Princess of Wales. The family's procession to Westminster Abbey provided Catherine with moments of profound emotion as she witnessed the massive crowds that had gathered to pay their respects to the Queen. The silence was remarkable, broken only by the sounds of horse hooves and carriage wheels on ancient streets that had witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies. The princess found herself thinking about the historical continuity she was now part of, carrying forward traditions while adapting them for contemporary relevance. Inside Westminster Abbey, Catherine was struck by the gathering of world leaders, dignitaries, and representatives from every aspect of British society who had come together to honor the Queen's memory. The ceremony itself was a masterpiece of pageantry and solemnity that captured both the grandeur of monarchy and the personal loss felt by a family saying goodbye to someone they loved. The princess's composure throughout the service reflected her growing comfort with public emotion and her understanding of the example she needed to set. The children's behavior during the funeral exceeded everyone's expectations, with Prince George showing particular maturity as he supported his younger siblings through a ceremony that was both historically significant and emotionally challenging. Catherine's careful preparation and the family's natural closeness were evident in the way they supported each other through moments of profound sadness. Their visible unity provided reassurance to observers who were watching for signs of how the young family would handle their enhanced responsibilities. The burial service at Windsor Castle was more intimate but equally moving, providing the royal family with a quieter opportunity to say their final goodbyes. Catherine found herself reflecting on her personal relationship with the Queen, remembering conversations about motherhood, duty, and the unique challenges of life in the public eye. These memories would inform her approach to royal service and provide comfort during difficult moments in the years ahead. The global reaction to the funeral demonstrated the Queen's remarkable impact on people around the world and highlighted the challenges and opportunities facing the monarchy under King Charles's leadership. Catherine was particularly moved by messages from young people who expressed hope about the royal family's future and enthusiasm for the causes she and William championed. These responses suggested that the monarchy could remain relevant for future generations if it continued to evolve thoughtfully. The post-funeral gatherings brought together extended family members and close friends who shared memories of the Queen and discussed the future of the institutions she had served so faithfully. Catherine participated in these conversations with growing confidence, contributing insights about contemporary challenges while showing respect for traditions that had served the monarchy well over centuries. Her ability to balance innovation with reverence impressed even the most traditional members of the royal establishment. The couple's first official engagement after the funeral period would mark the beginning of their work as the new Prince and Princess of Wales, carrying forward the Queen's legacy while establishing their own approach to royal service. Catherine spent considerable time planning this initial appearance, understanding that it would set the tone for their future work and send important messages about their priorities and values. As the immediate aftermath of the funeral gave way to the longer process of adjustment to their new roles, Catherine reflected on the transformation she had witnessed in herself, her husband, and their children over the previous weeks. The theoretical preparation for eventual royal responsibilities had given way to the practical reality of serving at the highest levels of the monarchy during one of its most challenging periods. She drew confidence from the support of the British people and from her growing understanding of how royal service could make meaningful differences in contemporary society. The lessons learned during this period of transition would inform Catherine's approach to royal duties for years to come, providing her with insights into the unique responsibilities and opportunities that came with her position as future queen. Her natural empathy, combined with her strategic thinking and genuine commitment to service, positioned her to play a vital role in the monarchy's continued evolution and relevance in the 21st century. 3 months after the funeral, Catherine stood in the same window at Windsor Castle where she had first learned of the Queen's declining health. But everything had changed. The gardens below were beginning to show signs of spring, and the heavy atmosphere of mourning that had enveloped the royal residences was gradually giving way to a sense of renewal and purpose. The Princess of Wales had settled into her new role with a grace and confidence that surprised even those who had watched her evolution over the past decade of royal service. The children had adapted to their changed circumstances with the resilience that characterized their generation. Prince George had embraced his enhanced responsibilities with maturity that impressed his parents and teachers, while Princess Charlotte had found ways to honor her great-grandmother's memory through small acts of kindness that reflected the Queen's own approach to service. Prince Louis, now old enough to understand that great-granny had gone to heaven, spoke about her with the matter-of-fact acceptance of childhood that provided comfort to the adults around him. William's transformation into the heir to the throne had been remarkable to witness. Catherine observed her husband's growing confidence in his expanded role, noting how naturally he had assumed the additional responsibilities that came with being first in line to the crown. Their partnership had deepened during the challenging months of transition, and she felt more connected to him than ever as they navigated the complex demands of their elevated positions together. The couple's first major overseas tour as the Prince and Princess of Wales had been scheduled for the following month, representing a significant milestone in their evolution as senior royals. Catherine had been working closely with Foreign Office officials and palace staff to ensure that the trip would advance British interests while showcasing the monarchy's continued relevance in international relations. The destinations had been chosen carefully to strengthen Commonwealth ties while addressing contemporary global challenges. King Charles had settled into his reign with a steady hand that reassured both the British public and international observers about the monarchy's stability during the transition. Catherine had developed a strong working relationship with her father-in-law, appreciating his vision for a streamlined monarchy that remained true to its traditions while adapting to 21st century realities. Their regular meetings had become opportunities for strategic planning about the institution's future direction. The princess had used the months following the Queen's death to deepen her understanding of constitutional monarchy and her role within it. She had studied the approaches of previous princesses of Wales, learning from their successes and challenges while developing her own vision for how the position could serve contemporary British society. Her background in art history provided unique perspectives on the cultural significance of royal symbolism and ceremony. The charitable work that had become central to Catherine's identity continued to evolve as she adapted her patronages to reflect her enhanced status and expanded platform. Her focus on early childhood development had gained new prominence, with research initiatives and policy discussions that leveraged royal influence to drive meaningful social change. The princess had discovered that her position allowed her to convene experts and policymakers in ways that could produce real results for vulnerable children and families. The media attention surrounding the new Prince and Princess of Wales had intensified beyond even the elevated levels they had experienced previously. Catherine had developed sophisticated strategies for managing this scrutiny while maintaining her family's privacy and protecting her children from overwhelming public attention. Her team had grown to include specialists in digital communication and social media who helped ensure that royal messaging reached diverse audiences effectively. International recognition of Catherine's growing influence had come from unexpected sources, with world leaders and celebrities commenting on her combination of approachability and dignity. The princess had received invitations to participate in global initiatives addressing issues from mental health to environmental conservation, opportunities that reflected the international respect she had earned through her careful approach to royal duties over the previous decade. The couple's decision-making about their children's education and upbringing had taken on new significance given their enhanced positions in the line of succession. Catherine and William were determined to provide their children with as normal a childhood as possible while preparing them for eventual roles they would inherit. This balance required constant attention to security concerns, educational opportunities, and social development in circumstances that were anything but ordinary. The Queen's private papers and personal effects had been distributed among family members according to her wishes, with Catherine receiving several items that reflected the special relationship she had developed with her grandmother-in-law. These mementos had become treasured possessions that connected her to the Queen's legacy and reminded her of the conversations they had shared about duty, service, and the unique challenges of royal life. The anniversary of the Queen's death was approaching, and Catherine had been working with palace officials to plan commemorative activities that would honor the late monarch's memory while demonstrating the monarchy's continued vitality under King Charles's leadership. These events would provide opportunities for public engagement that reinforced the institution's connection to British society while showcasing the new generation's approach to royal service. Catherine's relationship with Queen Consort Camilla had developed into a genuine partnership based on shared experiences and mutual respect. The two women had found common ground in their approaches to royal duties and their understanding of the unique pressures facing the monarchy in the modern era. Their collaboration had produced innovative approaches to charitable work that leveraged their different strengths and areas of expertise. The princess had begun developing her own vision for eventual queenship, studying the examples set by previous royal consorts while considering how the role might evolve to meet contemporary challenges. Her reading had expanded to include works on leadership, social policy, and international relations that would inform her approach to the responsibilities that lay ahead. These intellectual pursuits provided personal satisfaction while preparing her for the complex demands of her future role. The couple's public appearances had taken on new significance as observers looked for signals about the monarchy's future direction. Catherine's speeches had become more substantive and policy-focused, reflecting her growing confidence in addressing serious issues while maintaining the accessibility that had made her popular with diverse populations. Her ability to connect with people from different backgrounds had proven invaluable in reinforcing the monarchy's relevance to modern British society. The international speaking invitations that had begun arriving reflected Catherine's growing reputation as a thoughtful advocate for causes that transcended national boundaries. The princess had been selective about these opportunities, choosing engagements that aligned with her core interests while advancing British soft power and strengthening Commonwealth relationships. Her appearances at global forums had positioned her as a voice for progressive approaches to traditional challenges. The children's understanding of their great-grandmother's legacy had developed through age-appropriate conversations and activities that honored her memory while helping them process their own grief. Catherine had encouraged them to ask questions about the Queen's life and work, using these discussions as opportunities to explore themes of service, duty, and the importance of using privilege to help others. These conversations had revealed the children's natural empathy and their growing awareness of their special responsibilities. William and Catherine's joint vision for their future reign had crystallized during the months following the Queen's death, as they discussed their hopes for a monarchy that remained true to its constitutional role while addressing contemporary social challenges. Their plans included expanded support for mental health initiatives, environmental conservation, and social mobility programs that would demonstrate the institution's relevance to ordinary people's lives. The couple's decision to establish their permanent residence at Windsor Castle represented both practical considerations about security and protocol, and their desire to honor the Queen's memory by maintaining the residence she had loved most. Catherine had worked with interior designers and historians to create living spaces that respected the castle's heritage while accommodating their family's needs and the practical requirements of their enhanced roles. As spring advanced and the first anniversary of the Queen's death approached, Catherine reflected on the extraordinary year that had transformed their lives so completely. The shy university student who had once hesitated to embrace public attention had evolved into a confident royal figure capable of representing British values and interests on the world stage. Her journey from commoner to future queen had been marked by challenges and triumphs that had strengthened her character and deepened her commitment to service. The princess understood that the mourning period for the queen was ending, but her influence on the monarchy would endure through the institutions and traditions she had nurtured and the example she had set for future generations. Catherine felt the responsibility of carrying forward this legacy while making her own contributions to the crown's continued relevance and service to the British people and the Commonwealth nations. The moment of grace and strength that had moved the world during the Queen's final days had evolved into a sustained demonstration of the monarchy's capacity for renewal and adaptation. William and Catherine's partnership had emerged from this period of transition stronger and more purposeful, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead as they prepared to serve as the next king and queen of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth realms. Their shared journey through grief, responsibility, and growth had demonstrated to the world that the monarchy could honor its past while embracing its future with confidence and dignity. The royal goodbye had become a royal beginning, marked by the kind of grace and strength that would define their approach to service for generations to come. Catherine's transformation was complete, but her story as Princess of Wales and future queen was just beginning.